extraordinary. We are now better prepared to deal with the invisible enemy COVID-19, which keeps threatening the entire world from time to time and even more recently. The Indian economy has literally hauled itself out of one of the deepest contractions in the first quarter of 2021 to a position in which the GDP has expanded by 13.7% in the first half of 21-22, in alignment with our projections. In several sectors of the economy, pre-pandemic levels of output have been crossed. Inflation is broadly aligned with the target of 4%, barring, of course, short-lived spikes. External financing requirements are very modest, and strong buffers should withstand any global spillovers. Public finances have been strengthened by buoyant tax revenues. The central and state governments and the Reserve Bank of India have mobilized policy actions on an unprecedented scale and scope to bring about this outcome. Equally, the selfless and tireless efforts of our unsung warriors among municipal and local bodies, healthcare, police and administrative personnel, philanthropic entities and civil society are praiseworthy. They remind us of a quote from Mahatma Gandhi: "The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others." I think this pandemic truly brought India together and could just be the moment of India's arrival as a global growth driver. Let me now turn to the deliberations of the Monetary Policy Committee, which met on 6th, 7th and 8th of December. Based on an assessment of the macroeconomic situation and outlook, the MPC voted unanimously to maintain the status quo with regard to the policy repo rate, and by a majority of 5:1 to retain the accommodative policy stance. Consequently, the policy repo rate remains unchanged at 4%, and the stance remains accommodative as long as necessary to revive and sustain growth on a durable basis and continue to mitigate the impact of COVID-19 on the economy while ensuring that inflation remains within the target going forward. The marginal standing facility, that is MSF rate, and the bank rate remain unchanged at 4.25%. The reverse repo rate also remains unchanged at 3.35%. I would now like to dwell briefly on the MPC's rationale for maintaining status quo on the policy rate and the stance. Noting that the economic activity is broadly evolving in line with its assessment in October, the MPC was of the view that the sharp and sustained reduction in new COVID-19 infections and the rise in vaccination coverage are contributing to consumer confidence and business optimism. The prospects of economic activity are steadily improving, including for contact-intensive services that were hit hard by the pandemic. The MPC noted the supply-side measures taken by the government to contain food prices, as also calibrated reductions in central excise duties and state VAT on petrol and diesel. Crude oil prices have also softened since end November. These would alleviate to an extent the domestic cost push build-up. The recovery of aggregate demand hinges on private investment, which is still lagging. The MPC regarded the accentuation of headwinds emanating from global developments as the main risk to domestic outlook, which is now somewhat clouded by the Omicron variant of the COVID-19. Moreover, given the slack in the economy and the ongoing catching up of activity, especially of private consumption, which is still below its pre-pandemic levels, continued policy support is warranted for a durable and broad-based recovery. Against this backdrop, the MPC decided to retain the prevailing repo rate at 4% and continue with the accommodative stance. I would now like to elaborate on our assessment of growth and inflation. I would like to first focus on growth. The NSO's release on 30th November confirmed that the recovery of Indian economy is gaining traction, with real GDP growth at 8.4% year-on-year for Q2 21-22 and subsequent to 20.1% in the preceding quarter, that is in Q1 of this year. All components of GDP registered year-on-year growth, with exports and imports strongly surpassing their pre-COVID levels. Incoming information indicates that consumption demand has been improving, with pent-up demand getting reinforced by the festive season demand. Rural demand is exhibiting resilience and farm employment is picking up with robust performance of agriculture and allied activities, supported by a strong start to Rabi sowing, continuing direct transfers under Prime Minister Kisan scheme, and extension of the free food grain under Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana till March 22. Urban demand has also shown signs of strengthening, with spending on travel and tourism surging in the last few months. Other indicators like railway freight traffic, port cargo, GST receipts, toll collections, petroleum consumption and air passenger traffic have also picked up in October-November. The recent reductions in excise duty and state VAT on petrol and diesel should support consumption demand by increasing purchasing power. Government consumption is also picking up from August, providing support to aggregate demand. Enabling conditions for revival of investment activity are also falling into place. The production of capital goods remained above the pre-pandemic level for the third month in a row during September, while imports of capital goods increased by double digits during October for the 8th consecutive month. The central government's relaxation of additional market borrowings by states, equivalent to 0.5% of GSDP of the respective states, subject to, of course, certain capex-related milestones, and the decision to front-load tax devolution are likely to bolster capital outlays of the states. The government's focus on capex should also crowd in private investment, which has remained in a prolonged state of muted activity. Further, there has been significant deleveraging of corporate balance sheets amidst congenial monetary and financial conditions engendered by the Reserve Bank of India's liquidity measures. Overall, the recovery that had been interrupted by the second wave of the pandemic is gaining traction, but it is not yet strong enough to be self-sustaining and durable. This underscores the vital importance of continued policy support. Downside risks to outlook have risen with the emergence of Omicron and renewed surges of COVID-19 infections in a number of countries. Besides, notwithstanding some recent corrections, headwinds continue to be posed by elevated international energy and commodity prices, potential volatility in global financial markets due to a faster normalization of monetary policy in advanced economies, and prolonged global supply bottlenecks. Considering all these factors, the projection for real GDP growth is retained at 9.5% in 21-22, consisting of 6.6% in Q3 and 6% in Q4 of 21-22. Real GDP growth is projected at 17.2% for Q1 22-23 and at 7.8% for Q2 22-23. I would now like to turn to inflation. Headline CPI inflation ticked up in October to 4.5% from 4.3% in September, after falling sharply between June and September. This uptick mainly reflected a spike in vegetable prices due to unseasonal rains in some parts of the country. Hardening international energy prices have kept domestic and kerosene prices elevated for nearly 3 quarters, edging up fuel inflation to 14.3% in October. The persistence of high core inflation, that is CPI inflation excluding food and fuel, since June 2020 is an area of policy concern in view of input cost pressures that could rapidly be transmitted to retail inflation as demand strengthens. In this context, the reduction of excise duty and VAT on petrol and diesel will bring about a durable reduction in inflation by way of direct effects as well as indirect effects operating through fuel and transportation costs. The inflation trajectory is therefore likely to be in line with our earlier projections, and price pressures may persist in the immediate term. Vegetable prices are expected to see a seasonal correction with winter arrivals in view of bright prospects for the Rabi crop. Supply-side interventions by the government have limited the fallout of continuing high international edible oil prices on domestic prices. I'm talking about edible prices. The measures taken by government have actually sort of limited the impact of rising international prices on our domestic prices. Though crude oil prices have seen some correction in the recent period, a durable containment of price pressures would hinge on strong global supply responses to match the pickup in demand as pandemic restrictions ease. Cost push pressures continue to impinge on core inflation, though their pass-through may remain muted due to slack in the economy. Over the rest of the year, inflation prints are likely to be somewhat higher as base effects turn adverse. However, it is expected that headline inflation will peak in Q4 of this current financial year, that is 21-22, and soften thereafter. Taking into consideration all these factors, CPI inflation is projected at 5.3% for 2021-22, and this consists of 5.1% in Q3 and 5.7% in Q4 of 21-22, with risks broadly balanced. CPI inflation is then expected to ease to 5% in Q1 22-23 and stay at 5% in Q2 of 22-23. Our monetary policy stance is primarily attuned to evolving domestic inflation and growth dynamics. Yet, imminent shifts in monetary policy settings by systemically important global central banks are bringing about fresh challenges for domestic macro-financial stability in the form of spillovers. In such a scenario, domestic macro fundamentals need to be resilient with appropriate policy stances and actions, and of course, strong buffers. In this context, a well-entrenched nominal anchor provided by flexible inflation targeting framework has imparted credibility and flexibility to monetary policy to effectively address growth concerns during the pandemic. In the current situation, it is important to keep inflation aligned with the target while focusing on a robust growth recovery. Simultaneously, the Reserve Bank remains cognizant of the need to ensure that financial conditions are rebalanced in a systematic, calibrated, and well-telegraphed manner while preventing buildup of financial stability risks. Price stability remains the cardinal principle of monetary policy as it fosters growth and stability. Our motto is to ensure a soft landing that is well timed. Let me now turn our attention to liquidity and financial market conditions. The global context is evolving rapidly. Appearance of the Omicron variant has added to the complexity of the situation, even as several economies are still battling the virus while others continue to deal with the lingering scars of COVID-19. As economies reopened, the spurt in catch-up demand has met with choked supply chains, shortages of key inputs, and tightening labor markets. Combined with high energy and commodity prices, this has ignited long dormant inflation in a number of countries even before output has returned to pre-pandemic levels. Several central banks in both advanced and emerging market economies have begun unwinding from crisis time policies as warranted by their own growth inflation dynamics. Now, with fears of further restrictions on travel and activity, there is considerable uncertainty at this moment on how the growth inflation dynamics will pan out in the immediate months. The financial conditions are turning increasingly volatile as a consequence. The Reserve Bank has maintained ample surplus liquidity in the banking system to nurture the nascent growth impulses and support a durable economic recovery. This has facilitated swifter and more complete monetary policy transmission and the orderly conduct of the market borrowing program of the government. The Reserve Bank will continue to manage liquidity in a manner that is conducive to entrenching the recovery and fostering macroeconomic and financial stability. In our endeavor to restore the revised liquidity management framework instituted in February 2020, the Reserve Bank has been rebalancing liquidity surplus by shifting it out of the fixed rate overnight reverse repo. I repeat, the Reserve Bank has been rebalancing the liquidity surplus by shifting it out of the fixed rate overnight reverse repo window into the variable rate reverse repo auctions, or what I call the VRRR auctions of longer maturity. The objective is to re-establish the 14-day VRRR auction as the main liquidity management operation. This rebalancing followed a pre-announced glide path whereby VRRR auction amount was progressively enhanced to rupees 6 lakh crore by December 3rd this year. In response to this increase, overnight collateralized money market rates have mildly firmed up in recent times. By and large, the rebalancing of liquidity has proceeded in a timely and non-disruptive manner as planned. It is also fulfilling its objective of strengthening the Reserve Bank's control over the liquidity overhang, which in turn reinforces the ability of the Reserve Bank to normalize liquidity conditions when warranted. The Reserve Bank will continue to rebalance liquidity conditions in a non-disruptive manner while maintaining adequate liquidity to meet the needs of the productive sectors of the economy. With this objective, it is now proposed to enhance the 14-day VRRR auction amounts on a fortnightly basis in the following manner. Rupees 6.5 lakh crore on December 17th and further to rupees 7.5 lakh crore on December 31st. Consequently, from January 2022 onwards, liquidity absorption will be undertaken mainly through the auction route. As announced earlier, the Reserve Bank has been conducting the fine-tuning operations from time to time to manage unanticipated and one-off liquidity flows so that liquidity conditions evolve in a balanced and evenly distributed manner. The RBI has also been conducting 28-day VRRR auctions. Going forward, the main operation of 14-day VRRRs will continue to be complemented by longer-term VRRs, the size and maturities of which will be decided on the basis of continuous assessment of the evolving liquidity conditions. The Reserve Bank also retains the flexibility to conduct fine-tuning operations of varying amounts and maturities as and when required. As I have repeatedly stressed in my statements and speeches, the endeavor of the Reserve Bank is to put in place an effective liquidity management framework that is consistent with an economy emerging out of the pandemic and having a nascent but strengthening recovery. The Reserve Bank also stands committed to undertake Operation twists and regular open market operations, that is OMOs, as may be required for effective monetary transmission and anchoring of interest rate expectations in line with the evolving macroeconomic and financial conditions. As a step towards rebalancing the liquidity surplus, it has now been decided to provide one more option to prepay, that is one more option to the banks to prepay the outstanding amount of funds availed under the targeted long-term repo operations, that is TLTRO 1.0 and 2.0, which were announced on 27th March and 17th April 2020. It may be noted that banks have already prepaid rupees 37,348 crore in November 2020, which constituted about one-third of 1,12,900 crore availed under the scheme. The on-tap liquidity windows of rupees 50,000 crore for ramping of COVID-related healthcare infrastructure and services, and the liquidity window of rupees 15,000 crore for certain contact-intensive sectors will continue till their terminal date, that is March 31st, 2022. Further, given that the usage of MSF window has been rare due to surplus liquidity conditions, we propose to return to the normal dispensation under the MSF. Consequently, banks will be able to dip up to 2% of net demand and time liabilities, that is 2% of their NDTL, instead of 3% for overnight borrowing under the MSF from 1st January 2022. This dispensation, which was provided at the beginning of the pandemic, had boosted market confidence at a very crucial time. And it was, if you recall, it was right at the beginning of the pandemic. And such measures did bring about a lot of confidence. It gave a lot of confidence to the market, in conjunction with the several measures which were announced by the Reserve Bank at that time and also in the subsequent months thereafter. Let me reiterate that we remain committed to our stance in support of our overarching priority at this juncture to broaden the growth impulses while preserving monetary and financial stability. We also continue to encourage adequate flow of credit. We will also continue to encourage adequate flow of credit to all productive sectors of the economy. Now, I would like to proceed and make a few announcements, which has been the pattern, if you recall, in the previous MPC meetings, or, in my MPC statements. And the measures, additional measures which I am announcing are as follows. The first measure relates to infusion of capital in overseas branches and subsidiaries of banks and retention, repatriation, transfer of profits by these entities. At present, banks incorporated in India can infuse capital in their overseas branches and subsidiaries, retain profits in these centers, and repatriate and transfer profits therefrom with prior approval of the Reserve Bank of India. With a view to providing operational flexibility to the banks, it has been decided that banks need not seek prior approval of the RBI if they meet the regulatory capital requirements. The next measure relates to putting in place a discussion paper on review of prudential norms for investment portfolio of banks. The extent prudential norms on classification and valuation of investment portfolio by scheduled commercial banks are largely based on a framework introduced as early as October 2000. In view of the significant developments since then in domestic financial markets and global standards and best practices in this area, a need has been felt to review and update these norms following a consultative process. In this direction, a discussion paper will be placed shortly on the RBI's website for comments. The next measure relates to another discussion paper on charges in payment systems. Concerted efforts by all stakeholders have led to a significant increase in digital payments in recent years. There have, however, been some concerns on the reasonableness of various charges incurred by customers for digital payments through credit cards, debit cards, prepaid payment instruments, that is cards and wallets, unified payment interface, that is the UPI, and the like. It is proposed to release a discussion paper on various charges in the payment system to have a holistic view of the issues involved and possible approaches to mitigating the concerns so as to make digital transactions more affordable. Next announcement relates to UPI, and it focuses on simplification, deepening and enhancement of certain limits. UPI is the single largest retail payment system in the country in terms of volume of transactions, indicating its wide acceptance, particularly for small value payments. In order to further deepen digital payments and make them more inclusive, ease transactions for consumers, facilitate greater participation of retail customers in various segments of the financial markets, and enhance the capacity of service providers, it is proposed to, number one, there are three measures under this. Number one, it is proposed to launch UPI-based payment products for feature phone users, leveraging on innovative products from the Reserve Bank's regulatory sandbox on retail payments. Two, make the process flow for small value transactions simpler through a mechanism of on-device wallet in UPI transactions. And three, enhance the transaction limit for payments through UPI for retail direct scheme for investment of G6 and IPO offering applications from the current limit of rupees 2 lakhs to rupees 5 lakhs. Now these measures may sound to an average person as very complicated, but let me say very clearly and emphatically that these measures will contribute significantly to deepening of digital payments in our country, and will also help in the ease of doing various kinds of investments and making payments under the UPI system. The next announcement relates to external commercial borrowing, that is ECB and trade credit, and it focuses on transition from LIBOR to alternative reference rates, that is ARRs. At present, interest rate on ECB and trade credits are benchmarked to LIBOR for any interbank rate applicable to the currency of borrowing. As we transition away from LIBOR, guidelines enabling use of any widely accepted interbank or alternative reference rate for such transactions are being issued separately. And let me now turn to my concluding remarks, and I would like to provide some guidance which will be useful for all stakeholders and everyone in the days and weeks and months to come. Globally, economies are opening up and activity levels are reaching pre-pandemic levels. At the same time, the occurrence of COVID-19 waves in many parts of the world, including the appearance of the Omicron variant, stubborn inflation, and headwinds from continuing supply bottlenecks cast a shadow on the outlook. And I'm talking about the overall global outlook. Given the evolving growth inflation dynamics across countries, monetary policy is also reaching an inflection point, keeping financial markets edgy. The Indian economy is relatively well positioned on the path of recovery, but it cannot be immune to global spillovers or to possible surges of infections from new mutations, including the Omicron variant. Hence, fortifying our macroeconomic fundamentals, making our financial markets and institutions resilient and sound, and putting in place credible and consistent policies will assume the highest priority in these uncertain times. Managing durable, strong, and inclusive recovery is our mission. We need to be persevering, patient, and persistent in our efforts. We also need to be aware, alert, and agile to the new realities confronting us. Our efforts over the past 1 year and 9 months have given us the confidence and a head start to face the challenges that lie ahead. To quote Nelson Mandela, and I quote, "Part of being optimistic is keeping one's head pointed toward the sun, one's feet moving forward," unquote. Our journey ahead is clearer now and our mission is cut out. Let us work together towards a strong, stable and vibrant let us work together towards a strong, stable and vibrant economy inspired by the words of Mahatma Gandhi. My success lies in my continuous, humble, truthful striving. I know the path. It is straight and narrow. It's like the edge of a sword. I rejoice to walk on it. He who strives never perishes. I have implicit faith in that promise. Thank you. Stay safe. Stay well. Namaskar.
तो ये था आरबीआई का पॉलिसी स्टेटमेंट जिसका इंतज़ार था स्ट्रीट को। और इनफैक्ट अच्छी चीज़ ये है कि स्टेटमेंट में कोई अपसेटिंग चीज़ उन्होंने नहीं कही है, लेकिन जो कुछ एक इम्पॉर्टेंट बयान उन्होंने दिए हैं वो आपको बता देते हैं। FY22 के लिए जीडीपी अनुमान 9.5% पर रखा गया है और जो इन्फ्लेशनरी एक्सपेक्टेशन है FY22 के लिए उसे 5.3% पर रखा गया है। लेकिन साथ ही ये वार्निंग दी गई है कि Q4 में, इस साल के Q4 में ये 5.7% के आसपास पीक हो सकता है। ओमिक्रॉन से ग्लोबल रिकवरी पर खतरा है और भारत में भी इसके लिए सावधान रहने की ज़रूरत है, वो उन्होंने कहा। और साथ ही जो सप्लाई साइड लेड इन्फ्लेशन है उस पर उन्होंने नज़र रखने की बात कही है। लेकिन साथ ही उन्होंने ये भरोसा दिलाया है कि अभी भी जो इट्स अ लॉन्ग रोड टू रिकवरी, और इसलिए जो अकोमोडेटिव स्टांस है आरबीआई का वो बना रहेगा और जितना सपोर्ट वे कर पाएंगे इकोनॉमिक रिकवरी के लिए उतना आरबीआई की तरफ से होगा सपोर्ट। इन्फ्लेशन में एटलीस्ट जो फूड कंपोनेंट है उसमें उन्हें उम्मीद है कि Q4 में थोड़ी सॉफ्टनेस आ सकती है, क्योंकि जो रबी क्रॉप होगा उसके चलते हो सकता है दाम थोड़ा सा कम हो। तो ये कुछ की हाइलाइट्स हैं। साथ ही उन्होंने ऑब्वियसली जो लिक्विडिटी की विंडो है